Hi everybody, I wanted to welcome you tonight to the Mentor Series. Pam Barron is going to be speaking to us about mindfulness and how to build resilience when life gets tough. And I don't know about you, but I know that I've been through some tough times, and I'm sure everybody here has. And the thing is, when we go through hard times, life goes on, and that includes being a home mentor. So I am looking so forward to this tonight, and I know that Pam is going to be delivering a great presentation. So Pam, I would like to introduce you and have you get started. Welcome.
Hi everybody, I'm Pam Barron. I'm one of the special education teachers with the Rural Virtual Academy. I primarily work with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in the RVA. So like Tracy mentioned, I am here tonight to talk with you about mindfulness. And it will involve a lot of practice, because I feel like to really understand mindfulness, you have to do it to get it. So we'll do some small practices, very low to no pressure situations. And then I'll get into some other information as well for how mindfulness can really change your brain and help you cope with difficult times. So without further ado, how do we use mindfulness to develop resiliency? I shared a little about myself already, but to just give you some more background about me, this is my 12th year of teaching, my 3rd in the RVA. As I said, I'm a special education teacher. That is what I've done for the last 12 years. And I have primarily taught in the middle school. I had one short gig my first year in the RVA, where I also jumped into 9th grade, so I got a little bit of that high school taste. But otherwise, I've spent my career in the middle school, and it's truly an area and an age group that I love. It's a very complex time for kids. Most of us, we think back on our own middle school years and probably don't have all the fondest of memories. So I like to teach this group because they're just it's just like a complex and interesting age. Most of my background has been teaching in the cross-categorical setting, meaning I've taught students with a wide range of abilities at one time, or at different times. But I also spent several years in a very focused setting in a self-contained classroom. One was in emotional behavioral disorders, self-contained settings. So I had a lot of students who really had a lot of trauma, had a lot of behavioral difficulties. And then I also a self-contained setting with students with moderate to severe autism, many of whom were nonverbal. And I've used these mindfulness practices throughout my career, and I've gotten kind of better at it or honed in more on it the more I've used it. So I can really see the benefit of this for our students. And tonight, for you all as home mentors, taking care of yourselves too. I think we all have the tendency to put others first. That's why we all do what we do. But it's also important to take care of us so that we can be our best selves to continue to others. And finally, like the last professional type of thing here is I did attend a fundamentals workshop with Mindful Schools about 2 years ago. It was a 16-hour or 8-hour, I can't remember offhand today. It was a course that I took online with a consortium of people. Mindful Schools is an organization out of California, specifically in the Los Angeles area, where they've had severe issues with behavior, with gangs, with racism, just tons of things that impact their educational environment, and it was having an impact on the students' learning. And they found that these mindful practices have really helped their students accelerate both academically and socially and emotionally. So that's the professional side of me. The personal side of me, I've been married for 3 years. I've been with my husband for 8. We have one dog. His name is Ranger. You hear him barking, but I think my husband's got him occupied for the next hour. I live near Madison, Wisconsin, and when I'm not doing teaching stuff, I love to read, I love to run, and I just like to be outside. any kind of weather. I'll bundle up in whatever I need to be outside. So my why for this, when Tracy and Josh offered to us teachers to offer different workshops for home mentors, this one at the time was playing a really important role in my life. A year and a half ago, my husband's brother passed away completely unexpectedly. He was 24 years old. To give you perspective, my husband's 33, so there was a bit of an age gap. This is his littlest brother. Completely unexpected. It actually happened the night that I was chaperoning prom with the RVA up in Wisconsin Dells. And my mother-in-law could not get a hold of my husband, so she called me. So I get this call, and my husband was out on the lake fishing, which is why he couldn't answer his phone. He had no reception. So the next 2 hours of my life were spent trying to get to my husband, waiting for him to come off the lake, and then figuring out how I was going to tell him that his brother had passed away and essentially break his heart. And when I did, our lives shifted. You know, that was that pivotal moment where everything changed. Perspective on everything changed. How we handled everything changed. How we navigated life changed. And we fell in some really tough times. Grief just has that way of throwing you around and you just don't know what to do. You can't navigate it. Absolutely, Josh, is a vector of change. And that defining moment in life, you know, everything now before and after on that moment. So that threw us. And we needed to figure out a way to navigate this different life, this new life, and handle all these emotions, unanswered questions, grief, just figuring out how to get up in the morning and face the next day. Just as we kind of found a rhythm or a path, or at least a way to get from 1 hour to the next, his father passed away. So within 6 months, he lost half of his family. And as you can imagine, you know, grief on top of grief, it just, everything compounds, everything becomes more magnified. So again, in order to move through that time and to move with that time, personally, I turned to a lot of mindfulness because it became much more important that I, one, took care of myself so that I could be there to take care of my husband as he dealt with this grief in his way. So that's my why. That's why I'm here. Everybody goes through extremely difficult times. You know, that's part of life, and it can be, you know, the most wonderful times and the most horrible times. And yet, as Tracy said earlier, life does still go on. And how do we go on with it? So turning to that and trying to figure out like how we can shape our brains or shape our responses or really be our best versions of ourselves as we navigate grief or any type of setback, any type of heartbreak or difficult time or tough decisions. Mindfulness can be there to help guide you. Before we actually do a practice, I'll lighten things up a little and talk to you about what mindfulness is not. The reason I start with this is because there's a lot of misconceptions about what this is all about. So mindfulness is not a religious component. It certainly could find its way into a religious area, but in nature it is not religious. It is not a fix for problems or issues, right? My grief didn't go away when I started doing mindfulness. It was still there, but it helped me shape how I wanted to respond to different scenarios coming at me when I was processing through all of that. So it doesn't fix the problems, but it helps you navigate them a little bit differently. Mindfulness isn't about relaxing. Sorry if you were hoping to just be in a Zen moment here for the next hour. It is not about relaxing, although it can bring you to a relaxed state, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. It is not a meditation. However, some people that do practice mindfulness also pair it with some meditation. It's not doing everything slowly. If you know me outside of teaching, I'm a very fast-paced person. I'm active all the time. I'm always on the move. My brain is always spinning. To do things slowly is just not my jam. Mindfulness isn't necessarily about that. And it's not difficult, not easy either. So then what is it? If it's not all those things, what is it? Mindfulness is really about awareness of yourself and of your surroundings in the moment. It's a practice, so you'll never conquer it. You'll never be an expert at it. I certainly am not. It's just an ongoing practice. It's something that you work with from day to day, month to month, whenever. Oh yeah, maybe I should think about some mindfulness stuff. It's about being conscious, kind of going with that awareness. Mindfulness is actually a capacity of the mind and brain. And again, we'll talk about how mindfulness can actually change the makeup of your brain. It's about being in the moment. It's about inviting gentleness both toward yourself and others. It's about finding different ways to respond to experiences. And more importantly, it's about finding a way that you want to respond to an experience. It's about noticing details, and it's simple. So again, not difficult, not easy, but it is simple. So the first area is just building that awareness of things around you. This one, I like the idea of building awareness because what it does, at least for me, is in our world of everything is fast-paced, everything is right now, everything is, I should have done, 5 days ago, but I didn't. In that fast-moving society that we live in, mindfulness can actually help us slow that time down, even if it's just for 1 minute. One of the mindfulness gurus out there is Jon Kabat-Zinn, and he has this quote that I love. And it says, the best way to capture moments is to pay attention. This is how we cultivate mindfulness. Mindfulness means being awake. It means knowing what you are doing. In today's day, with all the social media, where a lot of us are, wanting to capture it on camera or capture a picture of it, posting it on social media. We want to hold that forever. And sometimes that's awesome to have that to go back to as a memory. But other times it's okay to just capture the moment, to be there in mind and body and spirit, and to not get out the camera. Instead, just enjoy the moment. So we'll get into that a little bit as well. So let me ask, so you can type in the chat box here if you'd like. How many of you have ever read a book or been listening to a story or watching a movie or a television show, and you become so engrossed in what is going on that you're actually feeling things the way the character would feel them. Your successes are their character's successes. The challenges that those characters are facing feel like your own challenges. Has that ever happened to anybody? Yeah. Or have you ever been in a dangerous type of situation or a kind of a hair-raising situation, and all of your senses become hyper-focused and you're completely aware of every detail as it's unfolding? Yeah, I bet most of us have at some point. Or because I'm on the active side of things, have you ever been playing a sport or a game or being engaged in an activity of some kind, and everything around you, all the peripheral things kind of fade away, and you're really just focused on that one thing right in front of you? And yeah, Tracy, like a bad car accident. Unfortunately, there are those, those pivotal moments, those terrible times that, we kind of hyper focus on. Or again, lightening things up. Have you ever tasted a food and you're like, oh my gosh, this is just amazing. This is the best thing I've ever tasted. And it just makes you feel happy and joyful. Those things are all mindfulness. So even though you didn't maybe have a name for it, you were still doing it. So again, it's just kind of becoming aware of different ways that your mind works and being aware and into those things. So some of you're already on the path. You've already experienced these things. You're doing mindfulness. So let's do a quick practice here. What we're going to do, it doesn't require anything fancy. You can either be, if you're sitting at your computer, you can stay sitting. If you're standing because you would prefer to stand, you can stay standing, or you can just find any comfortable position. And because it's a conscious thing that we're doing with mindfulness, I do want you to like either sit up straight or stand up straight so that you kind of have that posture supporting you. And you can either close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you. Some people are not comfortable closing their eyes. So in that case, you can just gaze gently in front of you. So not really focusing on anything in particular, but just like letting your eyes and your vision open. And your only job for the next minute is to just breathe. And that's it. So I'm going to set my timer for 1 minute. I'll just want you to sit and breathe. That's 1 minute. How many of you felt that that was a torturous amount of time to have to sit still and sit in silence? Or on the other hand, maybe that was the quietest you've been able to be all day, and it just felt nice to be breathing for 1 minute. This is one of my favorite mindfulness practices because it's quick and it's easy and we don't require anything. Yeah, Tracy, it feels long. And when we talk about how fast our days go and how fast it goes, and you know, we go through a weekend and the response is like, how was your weekend? It was good, but it went too fast. You know, that's how we live our lives. So if we really stop and take 1 minute to just breathe, we can really sense like a minute can feel longer. It can feel like more of a break. So to allow yourself time within your day to just take 1 minute to kind of close things off around you and just breathe for 1 minute. And actually, again, it helps to shape your brain to take that time so that you're prepared for that next thing. And trust me, in 1 minute, you're not going to conquer the world. I am a task master. I always have a list of things to do. And sometimes it takes a lot of convincing to get me to not just keep doing my list of things to do. But there is always a minute there. We can take that 1 minute. How many of you were very distracted while you were sitting in silence? Maybe your mind started hammering out like all the things that you have yet to do tonight, things that are coming up tomorrow, maybe over the weekend, maybe things that happened a few days ago. Yeah, when you sit in silence, your brain does that. And that's okay, because that's also mindfulness, is you're bringing awareness to the fact that your brain is still like firing. Right, we have these temptations like, I want to look at my phone, I'm just going to check my email quick, or I'm going to look on Facebook, or you know, what's going on over just any little things, they pop into your head. And that brings us to a second mindfulness practice that we're going to do right away. And it's called popcorn thoughts. Because our brains are wired in the way that they're going to be firing these thoughts, ideas, plans all the time. So when these thoughts come into your mind, how you can start shaping your brain to hone in on things that are right there in front of you is to acknowledge that you have those thoughts. But again, to allow yourself the time and space to have some mindfulness practice time. So what we're going to do with this one, it'll be a shorter time period. We're just going to do it for 30 seconds. But what we're going to do is, as we're sitting here in silence for these 30 seconds, anytime something pops into your head, think the word thought. So if I'm sitting here quietly and my to-do list is going, I'm just going to think thought, and naming it. And again, that brings your awareness to how often your brain is firing, because mindfulness isn't necessarily about relaxing, it's about awareness. You don't have to count how many things come into your brain, just identify them as thought, thought, thought. So again, we're just going to sit or stand with a good posture. You can close your eyes or gaze softly in front of you for 30 seconds. And as those thoughts come in, think the word thought. Here we go. So that's the 30 seconds on that. So again, you're bringing that awareness to those thoughts. And over time, as you identify these thoughts, when you're taking a minute or 30 seconds to yourself to breathe, you will start to notice your brain does stop firing so many thoughts at once. Or depending on the time of day, it'll fire more or less. I've been doing this one for a while. This is one of my go-to mindfulness practices. And now when I do this, I think thought. So I don't actually think of any other things. Instead, my brain is just saying thought, thought, thought for I don't know what reason. So again, it's just bringing awareness, like what is going on in my brain? There's no right or wrong way to do any of this. So those are my two easy go-tos. The next slide here is talking about how mindfulness can be a superpower. And there's this really great video that's put out by Happify, which is a website and app that focuses on kind of like happiness and mindfulness. And it's a YouTube clip. And unfortunately, when I play YouTube clips on my computer, the audio doesn't transfer. What I'm going to do is put the link in the chat box for you to click on your own. I think it's about 3 minutes long. This particular video did bring in a little bit of that meditation component, but really what it comes down to is 1, recognizing how you feel in any given moment, and then 2, deciding how you want to react on it, or for how long you want to react. Using that driving example, road rage. Somebody cuts you off, it might be your knee-jerk reaction to say something unkind. But then you could either choose to stay upset about it the rest of your drive, or you could say like, okay, well, that happened. I'm not happy about it, but now it's over and I can move forward. So again, it takes time and it takes practice to stop that knee-jerk reaction, because that's just how we're wired. But it can happen over time, or it can happen in different circumstances. So that's where we get into how this can change your brain, and how the changes in your brain are actually what will help you then develop that resiliency to get through tough times. So I'm going to start with another story. This is a poem written by Portia Nelson, and it goes like this. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find my way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. Still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5, I walk down another street. So what is this poem getting at? And if you'd like to pick up the microphone, sometimes that's easier than typing, you are welcome to do so. You can train yourself to not make the same mistakes over and over. Yeah. When you're mindful, you're aware of things that can be avoided. Yes. Right. Most people are familiar with the saying, you know, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, right? So we have these choices. We have control in some areas. And it's important to recognize that because sometimes our lives can feel out of control. So many things really are beyond our control. And it helps to kind of whittle things down and determine, well, what things do I have a choice about? What things can I cultivate to fit what I need rather than just falling into these same old habits? And again, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not it's not easy, but it could be simple. Just again, bringing that awareness to yourself and your body. So let's get into another mindfulness practice here. This one is another breathing one. Again, just because to me, our breath is one of those things that we take the most for granted because our bodies just take care of that for us. We don't have to remember to breathe. So I think to come back to that, that's really where, you know, when we lose control of everything else and we really can't figure out where we can, you know, get some traction, we still have our breath. That's kind of like the anchor that you can use when everything else seems out of control. So counting breaths, this one again is just to help our brains have a focus. So we talked about those popcorn thoughts where your brain's just firing. So what we can do is we can give our brain a job. And that can help those other thoughts from coming in because our brain's already doing something. So what we're going to do, you're going to breathe normally, whatever's comfortable for you. And then when you inhale, you're going to count 1. And when you exhale, you're going to count 2. So your brain's job is to count. When you inhale again, that's 3. When you exhale, that's 4. And when you get to 10, start back over at 1. And you'll probably notice that you're going to overcount. You're going to get to like 15 or 20 or 50. And then remember, oh yeah, she said I was supposed to start over at 10. Well, then whenever you remember that, go ahead and start back over at 10. Again, there's no incorrect way to do this. There's nothing, you know, nothing's going to happen if you count over. Again, you're bringing that awareness to where your mind is going. So again, we're just going to do this for 30 seconds. And again, you're counting inhale 1, exhale 2, inhale 3, and so on. And then starting over once you get to 10. So here we go. That's our 30 seconds. You don't have to tell me in the chat box unless you want to, but how many of you went over 10? Or how many of you were like hyper focused on like, don't go over 10, don't go over 10, don't go over 10, start over at 10. So again, you're just bringing awareness to what your mind is doing. All right. I'm going to get pretty nerdy on you for a minute here, maybe for a couple minutes, because this whole talk really gets down to mindfulness and building resiliency and getting through things when life gets hard, when life falls apart. And thank you, Tracy. you did notice that your brain maybe counted over, or were like super focused on not counting over. Yeah, it happens. Like, again, that's what I love about mindfulness, is there's not a wrong way to do it. And the fact that you notice that that's what your brain is doing, that's mindfulness success. Okay, so how does all of this really change your brain? There have been a lot of studies out there. I'm one that likes to read studies and read books and read articles and whatnot to figure things out scientifically. I do have a background in behavioral analysis, so that tends to be what I do. But I did feel like this one study was really important, and it kind of highlighted what a lot of studies are starting to show. So this particular study was outlined in a Harvard Business Review magazine. But what it found was that mindfulness practice leads to increases in regional brain gray matter density. So there's the nerdiness. Your brain has all this gray matter, and it can increase the amount of that gray matter, and therefore is quite literally physiologically changing how your brain works and functions and uses the various parts that you have. So participants were part of an 8-week mindfulness program, and what the results showed is that there was a change to what's called the anterior cingulate cortex, or the ACC, which is located behind your brain's frontal lobe. So imagine like digging back into your forehead, and it's like that deep part of your brain directly in from your forehead. That's that ACC. That part of the brain is what is associated with self-regulation, which is the component of your behavior that allows you to purposefully direct your attention and behavior to something. It suppresses those knee-jerk reactions to things. That's self-regulation. It also, if you're feeling really amped up, it's what helps you like cool back down. And in the population that I work with, a lot of times, students that I have struggle with the self-regulation piece, which is where mindfulness has come in to help develop that part of the brain to help them use their different tools and skills to help regulate those emotions throughout the day. So damage can happen to that part of your brain, that ACC, through any kinds of things, stress, trauma, just being in your environment. Every experience is changing your brain every day. So when there's damage in that part of the brain, it causes impulsivity. It causes or can cause unchecked aggression. It can cause poor performance on tests of mental flexibility and thinking, and ineffective problem solving. And it also can impact your ability to learn from past experiences, make new decisions, to prevent you from falling back into that same hole in the sidewalk. Also with the study, what they found is that it increases the gray matter in the hippocampus, which is a very small part of your brain. And again, it's another area that can be damaged by chronic stress. People with depression and PTSD often have a smaller hippocampus. So mindfulness can help you actually expand that part of the brain again. And that's where that resilience can be developed. And your brain will literally start to change slowly over time and sometimes imperceptibly. But it can change your perception of yourself and everything around you. It can change in regard to your own bodily awareness. It can change your pain tolerance, your emotional regulation, your introspection, complex thinking, and your sense of self. So there's proof in the pudding. There's definite benefit to just doing very simple mindfulness practices whenever you think of it. Yeah, Tracy, I could go way deep into the brain things, but I won't tonight. But it's just really interesting to dig into that research and to see, different parts of the brain that fire when you've developed a mindfulness practice. Very cool. So we've been here going on 45 minutes. So we're going to do a different type of mindfulness. This is for those of us that have trouble sitting still. I have trouble sitting still. It's a miracle I haven't put my standing desk up yet. So we're going to do a different type of mindfulness practice. And this one I love, and it's especially fun to do with kids. So if you're wanting to do this like as a family or with your children at home, Shake It Off is a really fun one. So I'm going to ask everybody to let loose a little bit. The benefit to the situation that we have here being virtual is that you guys can see me, but I can't see you. You don't have to worry about looking silly in front of anybody, except maybe your own family members. But hopefully they'll forgive you. Or just, so this one's called Shake It Off. And what I invite you to do is to stand up. So I am going to put up my standing desk. And the rules are this. I'm going to tell you to shake. And I just want you to like shake your body, shake your arms, shake your feet. Some of you that aren't as comfortable doing this like might just tap your foot. Hopefully over time you feel more comfortable to really move as many parts of your body as you can. Make sure that you're in an area that you're not going to hurt yourself. So make sure you're like away from the walls and sharp objects. And you don't want to go so crazy, especially tell your kids this. You don't want to go so crazy that you're like falling over. What you're going to do is you're going to shake your body. And when I say freeze, you're just going to stop. And when you stop, I want you to notice how your body feels. So here we go. Shake it off. Again, if you're feeling self-conscious about this, start with your feet. Start with your legs. Maybe move your hips a little bit. Move your torso. Move your shoulders and your arms. And just kind of like shake everything out. Freeze. Maybe you noticed tingling in your fingertips. Maybe you noticed like a feeling of more lightness. Maybe you felt your heart rate speed up. Maybe you felt your cheeks flush, either from, moving around a little bit or from, maybe being embarrassed by shaking around in your living room. So let's try it again. So shake everything off. Freeze. And again, just notice, what does your body feel like? That's mindfulness. Feeling the blood flow. Yeah, maybe you were cold kind of sitting still, and now that you've moved around a little bit, you notice that. And the more you try things like this, you'll notice like more and more detail about that. Like, what does that blood flow feel like? Is it that tingling? Can you imagine the blood pumping through your veins? So now we've kind of had a halftime break and had some movement. Inviting ease and gentleness is like the next part of mindfulness, because we often are our own worst critics. We often give ourselves a hard time, or we beat ourselves up if we feel like we've fallen short on something. If we feel like, as a homeowner, maybe your attention was spread too thin and you didn't get time to spend as much time as you wanted to on the curriculum today, and that's going to weigh you down. And what I invite you to do is to, in a way, kind of like forgive that for yourself, to invite ease and gentleness into your own day is going to be perfect. And while mindfulness is not completely about relaxation, there's definitely a space with mindfulness to bring that relaxation into your life. And the mind really should be allowed some relaxation. I have this quote here from Seneca. The mind should be allowed some relaxation, that it may return to its work all the better for the rest. I'm sure everybody here has gone through times where they're completely and utterly sleep deprived. And when you're or good decisions, or those decisions that you really want to make, it's so much easier to fall into those knee-jerk reactions when we're exhausted. So again, inviting that ease and gentleness to say, you know what, it's okay if I just take 5 minutes for me right now. Because then when you return to that lesson with your student or with your child, when you return to the next task on that to-do list, you will have some additional vigor to be able to do it. This next practice gets a little bit more personal. So this one may not be everybody's cup of tea, especially when beginning mindfulness. But I think it's a powerful one. Because I think, again, like I said, so many of us, we beat ourselves up. We are our own worst enemy. So what I want you to do with this one, it's more of a guided mindfulness. So what I want you to do is just as you're standing or sitting where you are, imagine your favorite person. And if you have more than one, that's okay. Just imagine one for now, one favorite person. And if you can't think of that one favorite person, think about an ideal favorite person and what traits that person would have. What makes them your favorite? And imagine them just coming into your presence, standing or sitting next to you. And now imagine another favorite person and invite them to exist with you in this thought. And think about their qualities and their traits that make them a favorite. And if you can't think of a third, or fourth, or fifth person or more, think about all the people that are your favorite and all their traits that make them your favorite. Imagine them around you, smiling at you, encouraging you, filling you up. And smile back at them. Again, this is the part where you might feel a little self-conscious or silly, but again, I can't see you, so you don't have to worry about me. But I invite you to smile, even if it's a fake smile, even if you're doing like the grimace smile, even just putting your facial muscles into that shape of a smile changes your brain. So smile at these people that are all around you, loving you, supporting you, being gentle with you, and invite them into yourself so you can be gentle and loving it with yourself. And then just breathe. And don't force these people to come to you. But the more you sit and breathe, the more people might show up. And as you smile back at them, as they're smiling at you and encouraging you, notice what your body feels like when you have all these people around you, supporting you and comforting you, cheering you on. And just breathe and enjoy that moment. So again, that one gets a little bit deeper, a little bit more personal with the mindfulness. But that's also a good practice to go to, because I think sometimes we can feel like an island. We can feel isolated. We can feel like, you know, we're in this struggle alone, and our friends are far away or they're just not available right now. We can just imagine them there. We can know that those favorite people would be there to support us if they could. And the last kind of mindfulness practice that we're going to do tonight is just talking about gratitude. So just like when you smile, the act of smiling changes how your brain is wired. So can this idea of gratitude, just thankful for any little thing. Sometimes it can be hard to focus on those when life is falling apart and things are not going well and you are in that deep, deep hole and it really isn't your fault and you just really can't figure out a way to get out of it. It can be really hard to find the tiny things that you could be grateful for. And that's where I fall back to that breath. I'm grateful that I can breathe. I'm given another opportunity to try again, to keep surviving. And gratitude, being thankful for things around you, really kind of improve your outlook on life. And that does not mean that you're gonna be like, oh, life is beautiful and wonderful, and it's just life is great. Everything is not always great. Everything is not always awesome. Everything's not always wonderful. Sometimes things really do just suck. Pardon my language, but sometimes that is how it is. But again, with the mindfulness and with how we want to shape our brains is if we only focus on those crummy parts of life, your brain will start to change that direction. And your brain will start to shift into more negativity. And you will start seeing your world as a darker, gloomier, sadder place. Where if you're in that sticky time and things are crappy, and you can find just the smallest bit of gratitude, it'll shift your brain in the other direction to start seeing hope, to start seeing something good about today. So I invite you at some point to just think about things that you are grateful for. Some people do a more like formal gratitude practice where they'll like write down like in a journal or on a piece of paper things that they're grateful for. I'm really bad at that kind of thing. I have grand plans of like sitting down before bed and writing out all the things I'm grateful for, and it just doesn't happen. And it's just not me. But what I try to do is think of things that I'm thankful for at some point in the day, and then actually just sending out the thought of thank you. Whether or not the receiving person or thing will ever hear or know this, it is, you just send it out there to the world. Thank you. Thank you for letting me breathe. Thank you for giving me my soft dog that I can just rub his ears when when I can't do anything but sit here and cry. Thank you for having the small meal that I have in front of me. Whatever it is, the small things that you can find to be grateful in. Yeah, 50 things that you appreciate. And that might take a while to come up with 50 things, but they can. I think people think they have to be big and grand things that we're grateful for, but really they can be quite simple. I'm thankful I have clean water to drink. I'm thankful I can run. I'm, just those little things. Exactly, Josh. Just like if you go to the gym and you work out, you're going to get ripped. If you work out your brain will change. Your brain will help you get through those more difficult times. So I've given you kind of a lot to chew on tonight, but I do want to also just offer some other helpful apps and websites that can help you get started. Sometimes having like a designated time to do mindfulness, even if it is just 1 minute a day, can help. I tried that and I just kept failing at it. And nobody likes to fail over and over again. So I let the structure of it go in my own personal life. And instead, I just started to do it whenever I remembered. So you can you can work with this however it is, however it fits into your life and your. But some of the things, and I think, Tracy, when we share out the recording, I can share these slides too, so you actually can click on the links that are in here. But one of my favorite ones, and actually part of the reason it's my favorite is because I can get it for free because I'm a teacher. But you still can access some things for free. but it's the Calm app. They have different like guided meditations, they have music, they have soundscapes, they're called. So sometimes just having that little bit of noise background can help. They have like just like a plain old breathing bubble that you can use. So Calm is one of my favorite apps to use. Some of the other ones that I've used are Happify and Headspace. I believe both of those are paid subscriptions, but they offer free trials. So Headspace, a few years ago, I just did the free trial, and that was enough to kind of jumpstart me into inviting more mindfulness practices into my own life. The other suggestions, I just have an article to mindful.org, which is another organization that just has different strategies and ideas. We all are familiar with YouTube. You can YouTube mindfulness practices and you will find a gazillion. And because there's no wrong way to do it, you can really pick whatever you want. And don't feel bad if you get partway into it and you abandon it. I've tried plenty of mindfulness activities and I get like a minute in and I'm like, yeah, not for me. I'm not going to waste my time. I'm going to find something else. So play around with it a little bit to see what fits you. And then at the end here, just because, again, this will go out as a resource to all of you, I've just tagged on some other mindfulness practices that you can try. So we won't do these tonight, but we will. I have kind of like the outline of how these work for you to go to as another way to jumpstart your own mindfulness practice. So there's slow motion mindfulness, there's mindful listening, and that can go into mindful eating, mindful walking, mindful dishwashing. You can really be mindful about anything that you do. If you do need to invite more gentleness into your life, there is a meditation that I have linked in here. Again, meditation is quite a bit different than mindfulness. It requires more like sitting in a quiet space for a longer period of time. It's just not for everybody. But this is a really good meditation that I've done, and it's specifically to cultivate resilience. So I just put that in here as a reference if you would like it in the future. And then just my last slide is giving credit to the areas that I've gathered all this information. So my resources and articles that are listed, if you were to look for additional information or where all this information is coming from. But in closing, I do encourage you to just give it a try. Take a minute of a day whenever you think of it and just breathe. And over time, that resilience will build. You're not going to feel it tomorrow. Your life will not change instantaneously. But it really does help you navigate through those difficult times. And if nothing else, again, it just invites you to take care of yourself so that you can show up and be there for other people that are also relying on you. It can give you permission to wait on something before reacting so you don't fall back into that same hole in the sidewalk. Are there any questions or any comments or anything that I can answer for you tonight? Awesome, Jessica. I'm clicking on the link. And of course, there's an ad, right? Let me skip through that. Awesome. So it's a breathing, like a breathing meditation. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Jessica. I will add this to my slides so that it's available for people that might come back and either view the recording or just come back to the slides for reference. And Tracy, yeah, that's really what it is. It's about slowing down even in one moment in your life and bringing that awareness to what's going on, because that's where you really can appreciate the small things, or appreciate just that one moment, or be in the moment that really sucks and acknowledge that. We don't want to ignore the fact that life is hard. We can sit in life being hard for a little bit to figure out what our next step is. And yeah, there's no requirement, there's no right or wrong way. It's just, again, allowing yourself just a little bit of time to rebuild and restore yourself so that you can come back stronger the next time. I just want to thank you all for joining me and participating tonight. I really appreciate your time, and it's been really great for me to be able to share this part of me with all of you. If you do have questions, my email is out there. It'll also be with the materials that Tracy will share out with everybody in the Mentor Series library. So if you have questions about anything, please reach out. I'd love to talk with you more about this.
Thank you so much, Pam, for your presentation tonight. It gives us a lot of things to think about, and thank you so much for sharing your story. Being vulnerable and telling your story is really healing for other people too. So thank you.